Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to the Stream Center here at WFLA Now for this week's episode of Run for Fun with Leigh Spann. This show is designed to give you the tools and the knowledge to find running fun. It's not something that gets talked about enough. If you dread doing something, you won't stick with it. So we are here to give you ways to stay healthy by having fun. I'm the host, Leigh Spann. I'm the meteorologist here at WFLA. And as you heard, a running enthusiast. I've been running for about 13 years now. And I wanted to share all I've learned so that I can help others. And mainly I learned everything I know from Coach Maria. So good morning, Coach.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing just fine. And I said I was going to tell this story, but the very first time I ever met you, we were at some event, and a nice-looking gentleman came over to me and taps me on the shoulder and says, my wife loves the dew point.
That's kind of embarrassing. I'm not going to lie, but
I didn't know that you were. I mean, I knew a Maria was a run coach. Of course, I didn't know what Luke, your nice-looking husband, looked like. And so then he brought me right over to you, and we talked. And then I realized why you love it. It's because it means so much into.
And did he
running.
Also tell you that he loves meteorologists?
He did.
So, yeah, okay.
And he told me about Dylan Trier.
Yeah, it's his favorite thing. He loves I don't know what it is about meteorologists, but he just loves them.
Well, thank you very much, Luke. We love you right. All the meteorologists love you right back. So anyway, that is our topic for the day. If you live anywhere near Florida, you're already starting to notice that dew point, which is the humidity, is starting to climb. So we're going to talk more about what that means and how to still love running in the summer.
Yeah, it is possible.
It is possible. I talked about this today on our Strava Run group. So if you don't know what that is, Strava is a free running app that you can download. And right now in our WFLA Run for Fun group, which you download the app for free, and then when you go out running or walking, you can hit record, and then everybody can see what you're doing, kind of keep up with you. It's a social media app. And in our WFLA Run for Fun group, we have 104 runners. So
Yay.
We're so excited. We're going to do some fun things going forward with this. We just kind of wanted to get a bunch of people together and then start sort of interacting. We've seen people talk back and forth, ask questions and talk.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see.
And last week, we had some people on Strava say that they liked the podcast last week, which was all about my experience and running the 26.2 mile marathon in Cincinnati that's called the Flying Pig Marathon. And it was a challenge, to say the least.
It was fun. It was a fun podcast. It was fun to hear your experience.
And so if you haven't listened to that, please go back. These are some of the comments that we got on our Facebook page. It says, thank you for sharing. As a former marathon runner, there are always peaks and valleys. It had some good marathons. You had some bad ones. And Mike says that he would regroup and sign up for the next marathon. And so, yes, you gotta put one in the bank as the bad one and go get a good one. And
yeah, and if to all you first marathoners out there that did a first marathon and it was a really terrible experience for any kind of reason, please find a coach and do it again. Don't let your first experience be a bad experience. Don't let that happen, because it doesn't have to be that way. Leigh had a lot of good experiences before she had a bad experience.
Yes.
So just try it again. Don't give up.
Right. So we got Jim said that he's run one marathon. Doc says, you go. My dad says, I've always done hard things. So thanks, Dad, for chiming in. And then Matt Wilder says, congrats. My first marathon was also in the rain. it was the Marine Corps Marathon in 2019 with ankle-deep water at the time.
That one was brutal. I remember that one.
A lot of people remember that one. And so
And the dew point was even higher for that one.
And I was, for years, I've thought about that race and thought, I don't know if I could have even finished it. But now
now you know you could have.
They were pretty similar in the end. So now we're going to move on to today's topic. And of course, that's a dew point and humidity lesson, because it's a wonderful thing when a meteorologist gets to bring two passions together and explain why dew point and humidity impact your workouts outside so much. And I want to thank Maria, because even though I knew this conceptually, she's really been able to give it to me in actuality, like what to do, how to have it, how to know what to expect so that you can continue to enjoy that summer running. So the first thing I want to just talk about, again, I want to give a little lesson on why we even sweat to begin with. So what happens, obviously, the temperature heats up, and then your body temperature will eventually, if you're exercising, will also go up, right? So you start at 98.6. Well, as your body temperature goes up, your body produces sweat. That's pretty, everyone knows that, of course. Here's the part that people get confused about because they think that your sweating is what makes you cool down, and that is not. The reason that you cool your body back down is when that sweat evaporates. So going from a liquid to a gas, when something evaporates, it has something called evaporative cooling. Basically, it sucks up some heat so that it can go from one state of matter to the other. So it goes from a liquid to a gas. It needs heat energy for that. So it takes that from your body. So you actually have to have the sweat evaporate to get that natural air conditioning and cool your body down. That's the way it's supposed to work. And that's the way it works for some people in some climates all the time. It does not work that way in high humidity. So basically, think of the air can only hold so much water. So with everybody sweating, you're not going to get that sweat to evaporate. It's just going to sit on your skin. So even on days when it's hot but not humid, you might think, oh, I didn't even sweat that much. You did. It just evaporated. That's why on days when your clothes are soaking wet, it just didn't evaporate. And then if you don't get that evaporation, that's when you don't ever you don't cool down much, and you just your body has to work so hard to try to keep you alive, because if you overheat, you can actually have some major concerns.
And then you just keep getting more and more dehydrated. You can't keep up with the sweat rate at that point when the dew point gets higher. It's also why in a hot, humid marathon, you should actually put like a wicking layer on as opposed to sunscreen, because sunscreen will hold in that moisture even more. So like on a cool, dry day when the sun's out, we definitely want to wear sunscreen, but you got to be careful of it because it will make you hotter on a humid day.
But you're saying like put an actual long sleeve shirt
like
on.
Wicking something that will wick something away from your skin as much as possible, which nobody wants to put clothes on when it's hot, but
But it
can help.
It can help. And so I just kind of wanted to give that lesson because I think that is missed by a lot of people. And they think, oh, I sweated more or I sweated less, or why. The amount of sweat is one thing, but the evaporating, the evaporative cooling is what's so important to bring that body temperature down. And that's why you really get that flushed face when you get hot. Your body temperature just keeps getting higher and higher. And you have to be really careful of that, whether you're running or whether you're, just running errands around, in the Tampa Bay area in Florida. You just always have to be aware of that sweat.
Yeah. And why we talk about the dew point is because you sweat more when the dew point is higher.
Yeah.
The differential between them is where it gets kind of confusing. And so people look at humidity and they're like, oh, it's 100% humidity. But if it's 50 degrees and it's 100% humidity, your sweat's still evaporating.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. So you could have 50 degree temperature and 50 degree dew point and it's 100% humidity and it's ideal running weather.
Right.
So it's not about the percentage of humidity.
Right. So a lot of people we've taken relative humidity percentages basically out of all of our weather graphics because it just doesn't tell you anything. I mean,
really? I'm so glad you did that.
We're slowly changing it all to dew points. And the reason that we
love this. This is like my dream come truly.
Because the relative humidity is exactly that. It is relative to the temperature. So it changes from a lot of times 100% in the morning, no matter what the temperature is or how it feels. And then as the temperature and the dew point get farther apart, then the relative humidity goes down. But the dew point, unless something major happens like a cold front or something like that, or a warm front, the dew point stays the same during the day. And so that's a better gauge of how humid it's going to feel if you know that basically anything close to 70 is uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's just for walking around. That's not doing any kind of strenuous exercise. 70-degree dew point is when it starts to feel uncomfortable, whether you're exercising or not. So you work backwards from there. If 70 is bad, 60 is a little better. 50 is even better. And 40 is even better. And 30, that's when the air feels so crisp and refreshing.
Yeah. Which we rarely have here.
We rarely have here. We revel in those days.
But it's also what keeps our skin nice. So let's keep with the positives, right?
That's true. We are very supple because
we are always supple, and we don't have like crusty boogers like they have in the West.
Right. Yes, we'll take it.
We'll take it.
Yes, we'll take our small victories where we can. And
that's right.
But Maria did talk about just now that sometimes just because the temperature is lower in the morning doesn't necessarily mean that that is the best time to exercise.
Yeah. So to be honest, the reason I figured all this stuff out was because when I moved from Boston, I had a very difficult time hitting my normal easy run paces when I came back down. I could not, I used to run like 9-minute pace for my easy runs. No problem. My heart rate was fine. And then when I got down here, I could barely hit 10-minute pace. And it was like, it was struggle. We moved here in July. I had no way of adapting, which we will talk about how you can adapt. But I had to switch to heart rate because I was like, okay, I got to keep my heart rate in that same zone, which is easy running. And so then I did perceived exertion, and I just wanted to know why. I'm a science person. I just wanted to know why. So that's when I started researching dew point. And I was like, oh, the dew point is so much higher here, even than when I lived in Memphis. Like in Memphis, it gets very high in the summer, but it's for a shorter period of time. So we had plenty of time to run and be confident and hit all of our paces. But here you just don't have that. So I had to figure out a way to keep my runners interested and healthy and strong, and to keep myself going, because it was difficult.
Yeah, it's a mental, we've talked about that hills can be really hard, right? You can run up that hill and you think that was really hard, but you make it to the top.
Yeah.
With humidity, it feels hard, but you don't know why. You're running the exact same place that you were running in the winter. Why is it so much harder now? And so it all has to do with the fact that your body is trying not to let you die.
Yeah,
so
it's working harder.
It's working so much harder to try to cool you down, and you want to appreciate that.
Yeah,
and
actually
not stress it out even more.
Our race times are slower here. Yeah. Like I remember looking at race times when I came down, and I was like, wow, I might stand a prayer down here. And then I realized, oh yeah, no, I'm still the same runner. Like they're slower naturally. They're slower than they are in the Northeast. So I just wanted to figure that out. So we're going to teach you guys all about that today, which is kind of fun.
So this is why she loves the dew point.
Yeah.
So here's, Maria wanted to talk about the, adjustment calculator. Yeah. So she wants you to look at the temperature and dew point every time you go out.
Yeah. I mean, actually, the most important time to check the temperature and dew point is really in the spring and in the fall, because you want to be able to tell how your own body adjusts, and everybody's so different. Some people can run well in heat. Others struggle. A lot depends on how much you weigh. If you're a heavier runner, it's harder for that heat to dissipate, so you are going to have a harder time. Or if you're just a taller runner, or more body mass means hotter.
Yeah.
So you want to see how you run in each dew point. And once you get to this point of the year, it's just awful every day. So then it's better to go by perceived exertion. And perceived exertion, which is why a lot of times, like on the Strava group, I do things by feel, because the workout should feel the same. So if you have to run slower to get that same feel, it's okay. And the reason we do that in coaching is because if you don't do that, you're going to be overreaching your workouts, and then we lose the fitness advantage. Because when you want to get physically fit, we can't push too hard. If we push too hard, we miss that advantage.
So I was just checking to make sure no one was asking any questions on our Facebook page, because this is kind of a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And so once you've adjusted, so we'll talk a little bit about that adjustment period you were just saying, like right when it's that time when some days it's humid and some days it's not, then you feel like you're flying on one days, and you feel like you're the worst runner in the world on other days.
Yeah. But the temperature can be the same. That's the problem with this time of year, because a couple weeks ago it was like 72 and everybody was like, Coach, I'm running so well and it's hot. And I'm like, and then this week it's been awful dew points all week, like pretty much 67 plus every day. And it's the same temperature, and everybody's like, Coach, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong. I think my iron's low. I think I'm out of shape. I think something's wrong. And I preach, pay attention to your body. And sometimes when we're adjusting, we pay attention too much.
Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll go back to this temperature dew point adjustment. So whatever the temperature is, you want them to add it to the dew point.
Yes. Take the temperature, look on your app. If you look on your weather app, it says the temperature. And then if you scroll down a little bit, it'll tell you the dew point.
Because don't look at the relative humidity.
Don't look at the relative
Don't look at
humidity. It's the dew point. It has to say dew point before it,
Yes.
right? Then you take the temperature and the dew point and you add them together and you'll get a number.
Somewhere as low as 100, that would be wonderful.
It can be lower than 100.
Right.
Yeah.
But anything lower than 100 is fine.
100 and lower is go time.
Yep.
Like it is PR weather for a race. That means, like I said before, if it's 50 and 50 and it's 100% humidity, it's go time in a race. That is go time. But anything above 50, we have to start making adjustments.
Yes.
And also the dew point can never be higher than the temperature.
Right.
So above 50
Yeah.
is always going to be some sort of adjustment.
So I kind of broke it down as for some so people can understand this a little bit better. So this is the actual forecast for this afternoon. So if you're listening to this and you're going to go out this afternoon, right in the hottest part of the day, the temperature is expected to be 89 and the dew point is expected to be 68. So you add those two together and you get 157. So if you look back on that previous, percentage calculator, it's a 6% adjustment. So I chose 10-minute pace because it was easy math. You want to actually reduce it where you go, your pace is about a 10:36. And really, even if you were if you're a 5-minute mile pace, you still want to probably slow down about a half a minute for this particular temperature and dew point.
And this includes your workouts too.
Yeah.
This includes your workouts. Like 36 seconds per mile is a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot. If your marathon pace, let's just say your marathon pace is 8 minutes, that's like a 30-second per mile pace adjustment. That's going to feel a lot slower. And actually, it feels a lot slower to your legs, but it's going to be the same effort.
Right.
So you have to be tough about that and be like, okay, this is just because it's hot. It's not because I'm losing fitness. Because when we try to hit that 8-minute pace, then you're racing your workouts and then, workout hero, race day zero. Right.
You want to stay in the zone.
In the zone.
So now I want to talk, about the fact that we were saying that maybe even in the morning when the temperature is coolest, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best time to go out for a run. So remember, this is this afternoon's forecast, 89 over 68. So now I'm going to go to tomorrow morning's forecast. Maybe you're a morning runner. So tomorrow morning, the humidity is actually going to increase today. So the temperature is 75. So, hey, that's like a 15-degree cooler temperature day, but the dew point has come up to 71. So if you add those two together and you get 146, you're still running about a 10.5-minute mile because even though there's a 15-degree temperature difference, the dew point has come up. And so that adjustment is still pretty significant. So just when you have the dew point and the temperature closer together, sometimes that can actually, again, make the air a little more saturated, especially when you're like over that 50-degree mark.
Yeah, and this is just a basic calculation.
Yes.
So if you are a bigger runner, like I talked about, taller, carry more weight, then it probably is slower than that for you. You have to find what it is for you specifically. If you're doing harder workouts, if you're doing more mileage, that's probably going to look even slower. It's just kind of to give you an idea,
Right.
a starting point
Right.
to work with. And it's really important. The other way you can do it that a lot of people don't like to do, but I've been doing it with my runners and I love it, is to sign up for a 5K when you know the dew point is going to be hot. Like sign up for a 5K, go out there and bust it, and you can't care about a PR because you're not going to PR. Like it's just not going to happen. And this is the thing people say to me all the time. Well, I PR'd when it was hot. Okay, well, you could still run faster. It just means you're in even better shape than you think you are.
Right.
So take the number and then you can plug it into the Macmillan calculator and you can get all your paces for the summer training. And that's all I use. I use a calculator. I use VDOT. Sometimes I use Macmillan. You can use one of those calculators, but you have to use your adjusted time for your workouts. You cannot use your PR times for your workouts or you're going to be miserable and hate your life all summer long.
And that's what that goes back to the reason that we do this show to begin with, is because if you are hating your life because you're trying to run that same pace that you can run in January and July, you're just going to not do it. You're going to stop doing it because it is not fun.
You're going to get burned out.
Keep you having fun. And so a lot of times that means, of course, backing off of the pace, but also recognizing that it feels different in July than it did in January.
And you're also going to get hurt because
Yes.
you're still racing your workouts. Like it's a whole different thing. And we don't want to race your workouts. Like we want to be confident in our ability and not race our workouts. That's how we improve our fitness over time. It's so important. And this pertains to race day 2.
Yes.
Like it drives me crazy. And I'll talk about this in my coach's drill because people think it's mentally weak to pay attention to the dew point on race day. And if you're an elite athlete, you go in with a strategy and you don't really talk about dew point and all of that stuff because it becomes who wins. But in what we're doing, we want to run the best race that we can run on that day, right? So like if you make these adjustments, it prevents you from blowing up in your race. And which means if you're not blowing up in your race, then you're running the best race that you can run that day. So many people are like, well, I'm just not going to pay attention and I'm just going to run as hard as I can. And if I blow up, then I did what I was supposed to do when I came here to do. And it's just not true. If you had a course that was uphill, you would change the way you run for it. So we have these data points now for a reason. It's so cool. Like we didn't have this like 15 years ago when I was running marathons. Nobody talked about dew point. Nobody knew it. We just went out there and just knew we had a really crappy race and we did blow up.
Yeah.
But so these are data points that we can really use on race day 2. And it's such a neat thing.
And, when I see just recreational runners and they, and I did this, I'm not, there's no judgment because I think every runner, you get out there and you run your speed, even if you're using a Timex, which is what I was using and not even like I'd be like, okay, well, I know that to get to this mile marker, it should only take me 9 minutes and 20 seconds. And and when I did 9 minutes and 20 seconds in July and I did 9 minutes and 20 seconds in January. And I didn't understand why in July I felt lightheaded all the time.
Yeah.
Like when I got home and I had a sip or two of water,
Yeah.
which we'll talk a little bit more about what to do afterwards as well. But I just thought, well, I guess it's just how runners
And
feel.
I cannot tell you.
And it's not.
I can't tell you how many people say to me after a long run in the summer, I had to take a 4-hour nap or a 3-hour nap. Or if you're having to take a really long nap in the afternoon from your long run, you ran your long run too hard and you didn't properly, eat and recover with hydration. And it's very hard to do that with running, but you should not have awful headaches all the time. If you're having awful headaches all the time, you're exerting yourself too hard in your workouts and you're not going to improve. Like you're just going to stay where you are. You're going to stay stagnant, which if you're cool with just staying where you are, that's all right. Like,
But you're going to feel so much better if you adequately hydrate.
even better.
Yeah.
If you want to brag about being a badass because you totally bonked in your race, then I'm just going to tell you, you didn't hit your potential.
Yeah.
You ran it incorrectly. It's not because you're tough. It's because you ran your race incorrectly. So
the tough people are the one who their last mile is their fastest because they were able to make sure that were not going out too fast, so that they had the whole thing
not
left.
going out too fast is dependent on the conditions.
Yes.
So what you can run on that day. I mean, every world record that's ever been made in running, with the exception of the 800, has been with a negative split. So if you're not running a negative split in your race, then you're underperforming. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to run like a crazy negative split. Like the elites run like, 20 seconds or 10 seconds or 5 seconds even. But if you're not running a negative split, there's a better race in there. And who wants to not get the best race that they can get on that day? Like that's kind of isn't that what we train for?
That's what we're sitting here training for all year long, is for those races. And so for those people though that are just running 3 or 4 miles out on the streets and trying to just live a healthier lifestyle, this is for you too. Because
yes, absolutely.
Because you don't want to go around like I did with a lightheaded headache, feeling like you're going to faint for a couple of hours after the run, because you just didn't have the knowledge to slow down, recognize why that same exact run that you did 3 months ago feels so drastically different. And of course, if you're in Florida, it's the humidity, not the heat or whatever. but we don't internalize that as much for
you really know?
exercising.
Yeah.
You think about it, it's like, oh yeah, like when you brag to other people who live in colder climates, like, oh, we have high humidity, blah blah blah. But then you're like, but I'm going to still run my same exact pace.
Yeah, here's the thing: if you use it to your advantage and you respect it, it's actually an advantage to us. They call it poor man's altitude because we have more blood plasma. This is. Like if you get out there and you're going and you keep going for like 2 to 3 weeks, you gain blood plasma. So you get more blood cells. You can actually you're never going to run a PR in it, but you can get used to it. And if any of those people from the north came down and tried to run in it, they would not make it.
Which is what you do.
Yeah.
Or what you did in July when you moved down from Boston.
100%. And it kind of makes you feel like a badass to be able to I can do this. I can do this. And then in the fall, if you have a hot race, or if you're not even racing and you're just running some extra miles, you're going to feel the difference and you're going to feel like a superhero all of a sudden. You're like, oh my gosh, I have all this blood plasma and really is an advantage if you respect it.
So, because what Maria was saying, a lot of the elites, most of them, they go to train in high altitudes out in Colorado.
Yeah,
so they're training way above where there's less oxygen in the air. I mean, that.
So they create more blood cells.
Right. So that they're using the oxygen that they have more efficiently, and then they go down to the surface to race, and it feels like they have a jetpack, like their body is just filled with oxygen. Well, that's what happens to us, a little less so, but it does happen to us as we build up that ability to use our oxygen very efficiently in July and August.
Yeah.
And even into September, because we know it doesn't really cool down until October. Yeah. But if you have an October race or you start running in October once those first cold fronts start coming through, it literally feels like you're wearing a jetpack. Like you're like, where are these legs coming from? How can I move them so fast? And it's because you've been training for it. You just didn't know.
And you can't run as fast at altitude either.
Right.
But and people are coaches are very specific about respecting altitude as well. The reason they don't come down here is because you sweat so much, and that's dangerous. It's harder for recovery. Like we can't recover as quickly. We lose too much fluid. So they don't want to beat themselves up that badly.
So we talk about a little bit about that. So sweat rate is literally, can vary significantly from person to person. For whatever reason. You can, if you're doing some exercising in the heat, you could sweat as little as about a half a liter per hour up to, some people go up to like 4 liters per hour, but most, people are in between half a liter and 2.5 liters of sweat. You don't know what a 2-liter bottle of Coke looks like? That's what you lose per hour in this kind of heat.
It's crazy. And a lot of people, they don't realize the amount of salt they lose. So we're like replenishing ourselves with all this water, and we're actually making ourselves more dehydrated. Also, with all these new low carb diets going on, we're not as hydrated because carbs hold water in the muscle. So if you don't have enough carbohydrates, you're always kind of running low on the hydration. So that'll make it harder for you. You need more carbohydrates in the summer.
One of the things that Maria said early on that sort of clicked with me is because, again, as I'm learning, I was okay. It was a hot day. I'm going to drink some water. But she was okay. So in your sweat, you have water, of course, but you have sodium, you have chloride, you have potassium, and calcium. So you're losing all of that. And so you only have those electrolytes, whatever's left in your body, and now you just add water. Now you're diluting the ones that are still left. That's what she's saying is making you more dehydrated because now the sodium in your body is even more diluting.
Yeah, you're just diluting it.
And on average, again, in that liter of sweat, you can it's 900 milligrams of sodium. So if you're running for an hour, that's a ton of salt.
Yeah.
So I know, and we want to always balance the low salt, the low sodium diets. But when you're losing all of it, you have to replace it. You can't just go that far into a deficit.
Yeah. And then on the diet topic, people are like doing this clean eating thing. Got to eat clean, got to eat whole foods. Well, there's not a lot of salt in whole foods and stuff like that. So like if you're washing your food, I always it makes me think of washing my food. If you're going to eat apples and stuff, put salt on your apples. Yeah. Like you're probably under eating sodium. And then here, like in the summertime, you're going to have to take extra sodium. If you're doing that and you're eating super healthy or super clean, you need more sodium.
And that can be in, a lot of just the sports drinks just have sodium in there. And so that's why you don't just want to drink water. Look at what, there's all kinds. I mean, we're not talking about just Gatorade and Powerade anymore. Yeah. I mean, there's mixes,
unlimited.
Unlimited amount of ways you can get electrolytes back into your body. And that's how you're going to be able to continue running in the summer when you're sweating that much. I mean, you take your clothes off and they are heavy. Think about all of that water and sodium that you have just lost. And now you want to replenish it. Maybe not with the exact same amount, but certainly with the sodium amount, getting it back into your body.
And if you're eating a ton of processed food, I'm not talking to you. If you're eating a lot of processed food or eating out a lot, there's plenty of salt in your diet. You don't need more salt. But I'm talking to the people that are trying to eat a little, more whole foods oriented.
And then, so if someone is saying, okay, well, I do eat clean because I do want to be a healthier person. That's why, Leigh, that's why I'm running 3 or 4 miles a day. So they should not be worried about adding the salt to their diet because if not, you're going to feel depleted from all of the sweat.
Yeah. I mean, I do think everybody in the summer, anybody that's running should have an electrolyte drink. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to like lose weight, then keep it to 3 or 4 miles and really focus on your food. Don't try to go crazy in the summer. It's just a very difficult time and we want you to like running. So you don't want to be in a calorie deficit. That's terrible when it's hot out. I mean, anything that's just being hot is enough. We don't need anything else.
Because it makes all the things that much worse.
Yes.
I mean, you're more dehydrated. You're more, your body
and your
has
legs
worked.
Feel heavy. Yeah. Like you feel it. Even when you slow down, it still feels pretty bad. Yeah. Like it's just, although when you slow down and you put these parameters on, you will get used to it. And then it's kind of like Uncle in July. We're like, meh, Uncle, I give up. I'm going to deal with it until pretty much the end of October.
The end of October. Those cold fronts start coming.
And you'll notice, like, if you pay attention, like we talked about, which I think is the cool part, is knowing your body. 67, 68 dew point that we're at right now feels horrible right now. But when it hits 68 in October, we feel like we are winning the lottery. Yes. It is like, whoa, because you're going from, your body's used to 75 dew point now or 74 dew point. And so 68 now feels amazing.
Yeah, that's why we always, 70 is what I consider where even if you're just going to the store, the air feels heavy. Yeah. So under it right now, if you're not exercising, it's not bad. But we spend 4 months where it never drops below 70. So when that first time when that dew point drops below 70, it just.
And that calculator, that calculator, it stops like at like, I think 150 or 155. And it's like, don't exercise. Yeah. And I always tell Leigh, because I'm in Maine in the summer. So when it gets 70 dew point, which rarely happens in Maine, like there's a lot of 68, 69s, but if it gets to 70, they're like, keep your pets inside, stay in the house, don't do anything, don't exert yourself, don't go to the mailbox. And we're like, we wouldn't run ever.
Right. Yes. I mean, 180. I did sort of, we did sort of readjust this a little bit for summer, for running in the humidity.
Yeah.
But still, we hit 180
very often,
almost every day.
Yeah.
I mean and so hard running not recommended. That might be okay if you can go, I guess, into a treadmill if you really wanted to try to run. But even then, the humidity inside is pretty high.
It's still going to hurt on a treadmill. It still hurts on a treadmill, but. Hey, like it makes you tougher. And these are the things that make you tougher. They have hills in the Northeast. And it's all about mindset, right? Like just know this is what it is going in. And I kind of tell my runners, use it as your advantage. Like this is my little secret, my training that I do in the summer that the people up north can't do. Like this is kind of our little, special thing we deal with.
So try to check in to see if anybody has any questions. I want to know if the News Channel 8 app shows the dew point. Yes, it definitely does. Okay. But you sometimes have to look for it depending on which app you're looking at, because it will always show you the relative humidity, but you got to search a little bit farther down on the apps and you can find the dew points, because that's what's more important. And if your app doesn't have that, you can always go to the National Weather Service page, just weather.gov.
Yeah. And the most important thing is to remember that easy running, again, is a feeling, not a pace. Yeah. It's a feeling, not a pace. So find that feeling even when it's hot. Like if you're the person that's like, I'm not going to hit 10-minute pace because I'm not going to go that slow, then you're going to hurt a lot more than you should. And you're also not going to improve as much. So find that pace. Don't put parameters on yourself. Even if it's 11:30, 12:30, and also run walk. Yeah. There's no reason that you can't run walk. Run walking, do intervals, 3 on, 1 off, whatever you have to do to keep your heart rate low on those easy days. And then you can push yourself a little harder on the hard days. But like on those easy days, really find that feeling where you can keep that heart rate low still and still be enjoying your runs.
And then next week, we're going to talk more about hydration, because
how to find your sweat rate and all that stuff.
Because, like I said, people sweat so differently, and what's in that sweat and all that kind of thing, so that then you know how to replenish. Because believe me, when I went from drinking water after running in the summer to drinking and knowing what to replenish, I mean, my enjoyment level went so far high, went so much higher. And
and you can perform so much better when you're getting electrolytes and carbs in. Like I remember when Featherstone did it for me. I hired her and she did a whole sweat calculation for me, and I was taking it in every day, the electrolytes, and I performed better, I recovered better, I felt better, and it wasn't so daunting to go out there. So when you know what you're doing, it's so much better. It can be so much better.
It can be fun, even when we know that it is hard. We can do hard things because we love it, and we have to figure out a way to continue loving it, even when it is hard. And with that, Coach has a few things to tell us. She's only got 3 minutes to talk about it. It's one that I know that I have heard her harp on this many times. So coming up on Coach's Drill right now, it's a 3-minute drill. Y'all, we're going to make it a little bit harder as we go into summer, just like everything. But right now we're doing Coach's 3-minute drill. Take it away.
Well, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but my biggest pet peeve is when people don't take the dew point and the weather into consideration when they come up with their pace plans for a race. Reason being is because the goal is to run the fastest race that we can. And if we don't take it into consideration, then we tend to go out too fast for the conditions and we fall apart. And then we run way slower than we could have run otherwise. It doesn't mean that you can't, depending on the condition you're in, go for a PR. But it does mean that you have to be smart and take it into consideration. We take hills into consideration. We take training into consideration. We take nutrition into consideration. But for some reason, we are really hard-headed about paying attention to the weather, like it makes us weak. And it bothers me because it's the difference in a marathon between a half an hour in your time. So if you go out a little bit slower and kind of give into the weather, you're going to run a faster race than you would have if you just went in hard-headed and was like, I'm going to go at my same normal pace and I'm going to do it. In a 5K, it's more like a minute. In a 10K, it's more like 4 or 5 minutes. In a half marathon, it's more like 6 or 7 minutes. But in a marathon, it's going to be a lot different, a lot more painful. And then the other part to that is, once you have a really painful race, it's really hard to come back from that. You feel like you lose all control. Your body remembers the pain and you don't want to do it again. And then anytime you get in another situation, your body recalls that, and it's really ugly to try to backtrack and get your way out of that. So if we can avoid hitting those walls by training correctly, by following our nutrition plan, by not overextending ourselves or thinking that we're in a better place than we actually are, by being reasonable about our goals, and by paying attention to the dew point, we can actually run the best race that we can run on that day, which is our ultimate goal. So stop being hard-headed. Look up your weather app, click down, do the calculations, and run a good race. There, that's all I got.
All right. And again, as a meteorologist, to have people actually understand even what the dew point means, you don't have to know that that is the temperature that the air has to be cooled down to create, you condense the air, the water vapor in the air. You don't have to know what a dew point is. You have to know what it means. You have to know that that is a better indication of how humid it is. And it won't change throughout the day like relative humidity will, because I will inevitably get asked, what's the humidity? And I'll say, well, the dew point is 70. You go, and they'll, what is the humidity? And I go, I'm telling you the correct answer. 70 is the dew point. It is muggy out there. That's what you should know. So that percentage just doesn't tell you enough.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you enough. And actually, in the summertime, sometimes it's better at night. Mm-hmm. The differential between the two is better. In the morning when it's 75 and like 78 temperature, you're like, you can't breathe and there's nothing you can do about it, even if it's dark outside.
Yeah, and that's when it's a saturation. When
it's hard.
Yes, when it's saturated air and dew points are high. I mean, we always say it's air you can wear, because you can literally feel the moisture in the air. You feel those little invisible water
breathe.
Droplets, and you can't cool down. You can't.
It feels
breathe.
like you're running in a fishbowl, actually.
Yes. So that's what we're talking about. We know that people think about the humidity. We want you to look at the dew point, because that is a better indication of what you're going to feel when you go out there, no matter what the actual temperature is. So you can look through and you can find shade as you're out there, but the dew point is still going to be the thing that matters the most.
And if you really want to see me go absolutely insane, tell me that you ran like a great run and it was 70 degrees, and you know how to run really well in 70 degrees. And when I ask you what the dew point was, you're like, I don't know. I will go insane. Like, I absolutely will go insane in front of your face, and it won't be good.
And what Maria always says is, you can't beat science.
Yeah, you can't.
You can be good. You can do a good run even in humidity. It just means you could do better in better weather.
Yes, and everybody, like even Meb, we love Meb. He runs better in cold weather. Yeah. Brazil was tough on him.
Yeah.
Like, it is even the elite athletes.
He lives in Tampa, and he had a silver medalist in a marathon in the Olympics.
Yes,
did not do so well in the.
It was hard on
humidity.
him.
Yeah,
and it's hard on everybody. I mean, it just is. It's less hard on the elites because they're littler, but
they're very tiny.
Talk
they're
about
very tiny people.
Dissipating, but
so anyway, that's our weather and running less than. I mean, come on. I've been waiting.
You don't get any better than that, right?
I've been waiting on this one. And so thanks to Maria for helping more and more people find out what the dew point is and why it matters. So we look forward to hearing all your comments on Strava, on Facebook. You can just also, on social media, all of that. We love to hear from you.
I still want a shirt, Leigh. I think we need a shirt that says, what's the dew point?
What's the dew point?
Yeah.
Ask me about the dew point.
Or we could say, dews up. Because one of my runners always comments, oh, tough run this morning, dews up. Yeah, he says that.
I've never heard that before. Dews up.
Yeah.
All right. So when the dew's up, you got to slow down.
Yeah, when the dew's up. I love it.
All right. Thank you, guys. Again, next week, join us, because we'll be talking about how to adequately hydrate from all of this. We'll see you then.